Wow, that's a great question, and I think that I look at all kinds of different cases, so
Yeah.
from the hey, I want to feel better in my body, to the I've worked with patients to getting them off of medications,
Yeah.
or at least lowering doses of medications. I think that the being obviously, my passion being in medicine, and again, the evidence-based component of it. When I'm able to help patients come off of medications or lower the doses of the medicine, that means a lot to me. But I have to say, and this is really interesting because I feel that I have been influential in helping patients. At the end of the day, I mean, you can lead somebody,
Right.
to water, like they say, but you
Yeah.
can't force them to drink. So, I don't take anything away from obviously the patient's contribution. I have, the knowledge base, but ultimately it's their dedication and it's their commitment to their health that gets them to where they need to be. But there's one particular case that really stands out, and that's in a patient, a pediatric patient actually, who was 15 or 16 years old, and she was really, really struggling with her weight. And she also, was suffering from a lot of the stigma, the bullying, the, everything you can
Yeah.
imagine, a kid goes through.
Oh, jeez.
And she had tried, through different means. Unfortunately, there's a lack of knowledge and education out there, even amongst, professionals,
Right.
and physicians. And they really didn't know how to help her. So her mother, through one of her friends, saw that her friend was having a lot of success with me. And so she decided to take a chance on us and
Wow.
brought her daughter to me. And, last I got to see her, she was at least 60, 70, maybe even 80 pounds lighter. More importantly, she had
Wow.
regained her confidence. She
Confidence.
was
Yeah.
socializing again. She was back out there,
Oh my gosh.
being a teenager,
Yeah.
not having to carry this stigma, not having to carry this,
Well, I'm glad you bring
this,
up the
this weight.
stigma because there's
Yeah.
a stigma. I think society has a stigma with being overweight. Just because you're overweight doesn't mean that you're a bad person. I know I struggled so much with that. Losing 130 pounds is a lot to lose, but you start feeling like you're the problem. And you made a really good point, but there is a lot out there. It's almost too much information out there for people, but it's not all the right information. And so the stigma, one of the questions I had for you about what you're changing in obesity medicine is not only the stigma in the medical practice, but the stigma with patients because they feel it. They have that stigma that they walk through every day and you help them put that down. How do you do that? That is magic.
Well, I think one of the main problems is that we've made it acceptable
Yeah.
to discriminate against, patients who are overweight and obese. There are statistics out there, and there's actually, the introductory chapter to one of the books that I've read states that, it is still the only acceptable means or form of discrimination that still exists to this day in this country. You can't be discriminated against for, your religion, for your color, for your background, for your culture. But no one bats a lash at discriminating against somebody who's obese or overweight and making them feel guilty and
Yeah.
responsible for, a condition that we know is driven by so many variables and so many factors. So I think that that's where it comes in is again, so you ask, why is it a stigma? Why is it a problem? Because we allow it to be, it's still an acceptable form of that discrimination. And unfortunately, it's still very much so, even amongst, again, professionals and
Yeah.
medical providers. There's studies that show that, these our patients who are overweight are treated poorly,
Right. By other medical
by
professionals.
other medical
Yeah. Yeah.
professionals, by people in stores, clerks. When you see somebody who's overweight, automatically, the
Judgment.
thought process is the judgment is there. The
Yeah.
thought is that you choose to be this
Right.
way. It's a lifestyle choice, and it's much more complicated than that.
Yeah.
And sadly enough, and I know a lot of people may be shocked by this statistic, and also maybe in disbelief, and to a certain degree, opens me up to maybe being criticized for it. But when they look at the quality of life of obese pediatric patients, their quality of life is as poor as a patient who's going through cancer chemotherapy treatments at that age.
Mm.
And so again, the quality of life is very, very low. And again, it's shocking, to think, how can you compare that, a
Right.
cancer patient to a child who's overweight and doesn't have cancer? Well, that we're looking at, what society has done, to these kids. And so the first thing I tell patients is, get that monkey off your back.
Yeah.
You're allowed to be who you are here, and you're safe. And let me just help you, educate you, and realize, that there's much more to this than just what we can see on the surface and what people see on the surface. Genetics, access to food, lack of education. We talk about it all the time. And I think that peeling those layers of the onion, so
Yeah.
to say, is what I
Yeah.
like to say, helps us get to a certain place. But I think that the first step is giving patients a place to feel safe and to feel heard,
Absolutely.
understood,
Absolutely.
and
Supported.
in
Yeah.
general. Yeah. And then empowering that patient to understand
I
the
finally had
situation.
hope. I mean, just to be completely transparent, I finally had hope after talking with you. I mean, that
Mhm.
was one of the hardest things for me. You named the diet. I tried it. And I also was like, I'm not eating. I'm not, just because, at that time it was don't eat as much. So I didn't eat as much and I was not healthy. That was not the way to do it. I was eating a salad a day. It was horrible for me, but I wanted to lose weight. And
Yeah.
you're like, Megan,
Yeah.
Megan, let's look at this here. Like, stop trying to run the marathon. Like, let's make you healthy. And I absolutely appreciate your approach in comprehensive care, because you really do you look at the whole person, the holistic approach, like all of it. You take all of it in consideration. And mental health is a huge one. I mean, the kids, like you're talking about, everybody has a vulnerable piece to them. You are an angel for letting that vulnerability be able to be set down, and you make this connection with people that are struggling, and you look at it from not just medication, you look at it from nutrition, you look at the comprehensive overview. It's like, hello, this is what we should have been doing for so
Yeah.
long.